Any questions related to this particular course?
I may have to leave early today because I'm tutoring high school students. Maybe like 4:40.
Perhaps they need to do it on their own in order to deserve the tutoring. You do what you need to do. You know, Patrick just might be at the end. The two of us, think how many chapters we'll cover.
I can still watch the videos, right?
Yeah, unless we decide just to turn them off so that you. Yes, that is the plan. All right, we last left off with, we're doing the force diagrams. We did
The pulley?
excuse me, 2 classes. We finished the pulley,
Mm-hmm.
and that was just the box pulling this, like that.
Yeah, with the perfect rope and everything.
All right. Black on black. There we go. All right, a little bit different than what we had before. One, we got 2 inclined planes, and the other one is that this wedge here is not attached to the ground. All right, we're doing force diagrams. We got our checklist. So where do we begin? Not quite sure why I drew the diagram twice, but I did anyway. So why don't I separate this one? Let's see. So we got the box on the left, we got the rope, the box on the right, the wedge, and the ground. What first?
Well, we're going to get rid of any forces that we know aren't in the problem.
Okay, so get rid of other.
So we could start with gravity.
Or what's the name of the force?
Gravitational or weight.
Okay, gravitational force or weight, or force due to gravity is the other option. All right, so let's start out with weight. What has it?
The rope and the 2 boxes. And the
Assume an ideal rope.
right, okay.
All right, so the 2 boxes. So,
And we're thinking about the wedge too, right? Instead of it's not attached here.
yep.
Okay.
All right, so let's do the left one first. I'll call this W sub L for left. And again, forces come in pairs. Where's the other one?
On the right.
Not part of that pair.
The box is pulling up on the center of the earth.
Yeah, so there's a force up. That's the other part of the pair. And there is another weight acting on this one. And where's the other part of that pair?
Same. Go with the mouse.
I assume by saying you meant that.
Yes, correct.
Okay. And this is supposed to be an L. I know that when I write quickly, my L's and C's look a lot alike. and the wedge you mentioned. W's, go for R for ramp, no, we're doing that already, never mind. W sub W for wedge. Okay. Done. There's gravitation.
Koopy, if it would help, you can take a picture of my notes on like the basics of what we're doing here.
Thank you so much.
And this is just about like how the arrows are represented and how to define them.
Is that from last month?
Yeah, the one I sent you. Sorry about that. So there's tension on the rope.
Okay, going which way? On, we'll just say here. Which way is it going at this point?
It would be towards the rope from the box.
Towards the road, oh, you're talking about the one here? What about here?
And the box is, the rope is pulling the box in the opposite direction.
This is the rope pulling on the box.
Oh, right,
This box pulling on the rope.
right. Okay, I'm sorry. And it would be the same on the other side?
We'll go with the spirit of that. So F sub R, O F. F sub T, F sub T. Do we need subscripts to differentiate the two ends?
With the road's
Yeah.
ideal, you should. Right.
Okay, so I'm fine with this. If you want to put subscripts in, which I got 4 different tensions here, which one's got the same subscript? If you think about it as this is 1, 2, 3, and 4, which 2 would get the same subscript?
The rope.
Looking at the forces themselves for the subscripts. For instance, for the weight, we have to put subscripts in here because the weight of the 2 boxes and the wedge should not be considered the same. And so we have to do subscripts. Now the question is this tension the same as that tension, same as that tension, same as that tension?
Wait, so one side's heavier?
Say it again?
You said one side's heavier? The weight of the boxes are different?
All right, so the question on the floor is, if it's an ideal rope, the tension should be the same on both ends.
Okay.
However, if you want to put subscripts in, the question is which forces come in pairs, which 2 forces would have the same subscript? Which 2 forces, regardless, even if the rope is not ideal and the tension is not the same throughout the rope, which 2 of these 4 tensions would have the same magnitude of force?
1 and 2 and 3 and 4.
Yeah. So these would have the same, those would have whatever subscript you want to use, and those would have whatever subscript you want to use. So that's part of the pair. So regardless of anything else, no matter how ideal you want to make it, those 2 forces will be equal in magnitude. These 2 will be equal in magnitude. And we have only 1 rope. We took care of both ends. Done. Let's save friction till last.
The normal force of the wedge pushing on the box for the left would be perpendicular to the surface of the wedge.
Okay, so we're doing the force caused by the wedge, or that's on the wedge?
The force the wedge exerts on the box.
Okay, so which way is that arrow pointing?
No, it would point towards the box from the wedge.
Towards the ground.
Towards the box from the wedge. All right, try to word it in terms of the wedge is exerting a force on the box in which direction? The wedge exerts a force on the box which way? This normal force. Okay. Since the wedge is pushing up and to the left on the box, we draw the arrow up and to the left on the box. Where's the other part of that pair?
It would be on the wedge towards the center of the wedge, or perpendicular to the surface.
Perpendicular to the surface. Not necessarily towards the center. All right, there's one. We got 3 more pairs to go.
Mirrored on the other side.
Okay? So y sub r, y sub r.
Now, from the earth pushing up from the wedge. Or the
On the wedge or from the wedge? Prepositions matter.
force pushing on the wedge,
Okay.
preventing the wedge from facing through the earth.
All right. So it's being pushed upwards.
Yes.
Okay. So y sub w, and the other part of that pair.
I guess down on the earth.
Yeah. Whatever exerts the force on the wedge exerts a force back on the object. So since Earth pushes up on the wedge has to push down on the Earth. More formally known as Newton's third law of motion. All right, one more pair of normal forces. It requires contact, so think about what else is touching that we haven't dealt with.
Is the rope touching the wedge?
Yeah.
Okay,
Looking at the picture over here,
gotcha.
at that point right there, there's gotta be a reason the rope is bent like that, because if those are the only forces acting on the rope, that thing would be snapped downwards. So which way is the force acting on the rope?
Upwards.
Y sub, well, I guess I'm using R already, Y sub, I'll go P for pulley. Sorry, I spelled that, didn't give you an opportunity. All right, normal force, done. And now we're left with F, friction. What new bold color can we pick here? Ooh, a palette. All right. Which way is friction acting on the left block? Going that way?
Yes.
Why? Okay. So,
Parallel to the surface of the wedge.
okay. Why that way? As opposed to that way?
Because gravity is trying to drag the block down the surface of the wedge, so it's going to be acting the opposite direction.
Well, is anything moving? Or is anything off balance?
I didn't give you enough information, actually. Based upon this, if this actually were a test problem and you were drawing the arrows, I would have to accept 2 different answers here. Yes, if the rope were cut, friction would indeed be acting up the ramp, but the rope's not cut. It does have a force acting upwards. So it is this one. So the question is the net force down the right side, how does that compare to the force acting down the left side, which is a greater magnitude? Now, at this point, if you've had physics, potentially you know how to solve it. If you haven't had physics, that's coming up. But it's going to be a combination of the masses and the angles here. So for the sake of this problem, let's just say that it's gonna move this way. So the velocity, so this is gonna move that way. Now, this velocity arrow is not part of the force diagram, so I'm not adding it attached to an object itself. Just those are the direction of the movement. So if this mass is gonna be moving up the ramp, which way will friction be acting on it?
The opposite.
And again, comes in pairs. Where's the other part of that pair?
On the ledge.
Acting. All right, which way is friction acting on this one? And the other part of that?
On the ledge.
Now, we got one more friction pair.
It would be on the rope.
Ideal rope, so there's no friction with the ideal rope.
Gotcha.
Is it on the wedge?
It is. Between the wedge and what?
Ground.
Okay.
Yeah.
Which way will the wedge want to move? Why left?
Because blocks are moving right. So the normal forces should push the block left.
Yeah, pretty much. It's a center of mass issue that if the two blocks are moving like this, the general center of the mass is moving that way, but unless there's some outside force acting here and other, the wedge, the center of mass is trying to stay in the same spot. So if the mass is moving this way, the wedge wants to move that way. So which way is friction acting on the wedge?
To the right. Or,
Yeah.
yeah.
And then that way.
Is that because the blocks are moving?
The blocks are moving to the right, and so
Right.
the wedge will want to move to the left.
And then there should be an opposite one on the earth, which is trying to move right, so it should be left.
Yep. All right, are we ready for a test level problem? That look of silence and the lack of gestures from most of you sounds like a yes to me. The master set problem. Anyone happen to have master set 4? No, master set 5.
4, I think is the next one due.
It is, but 5. Okay, I was wanted to make sure I wasn't about to do the one that's on master set 5. I don't want to spoil it for you. But I just remember which one that is, so I'm not going to spoil it.
Yeah.
Alright, so we've got Edro in the driver's seat. He's got a stick that he's gonna push straight forward in order to make this mess accelerate in that direction. It is the direction he's moving in. Acceleration is in the same direction, so he should be speeding up. Eroge is road boarding, so he's on a board holding onto a rope which is attached to the vehicle right there. So that you know what the different pieces are that need to be considered. We have the road. We have the board. We have garage. Or garage. We have rope. And let's see this. Let's see what this does. That is not what I wanted it to do.